Penguin Random House Audio presents The Interrupted Journey. 2 Lost Hours Aboard a UFO, The Abduction of Betty and Barney Hill, by John Fuller. Introduction by Benjamin Simon, M.D. Read for you by Phil Thron. Introduction. On December 14th, 1963, Mr. Barney Hill presented himself at my office to keep his appointment for a consultation. It was like any other day. The appointment had been made in advance, and Mr. Hill had been referred for the consultation by another psychiatrist. At the time, I knew nothing of Mr. Hill's problems, but when he introduced his wife, who is white, I wondered, fleetingly, if their interracial marriage might be involved in Mr. Hill's disturbance. At his request, I saw the couple together and soon realized that both needed help. A month after the sighting, the Hills had been interviewed by Walter Webb, a lecturer at Boston's Hayden Planetarium and a scientific advisor to the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. With a copy of Mr. Webb's report to NICAP as a basis, Mr. and Mrs. Hill unfolded the story that follows in Mr. Fuller's book. At the time, there was no indication that either the interracial marriage or the UFO experience bore more than a tangential relationship to the central problems that Mr. and Mrs. Hill presented. Crippling anxiety, manifested by him in fairly open fashion, and by Mrs. Hill more in the form of repetitive nightmarish dreams. Aside from its topical interest, the UFO experience was important, because it presented, for both Mr. and Mrs. Hill, the focal point of the anxiety which had apparently impeded the psychiatric treatment Mr. Hill had been undergoing for some time. This point appeared to be a period of time in the course of their trip home from Canada in September 1961. They were constantly haunted by a nagging anxiety centering around this period of several hours, a feeling that something had occurred, but what? A treatment program was outlined for the Hills, and it was decided first to try to unlock the door to the hidden room, the amnesia, and that for this aspect of therapy, hypnosis would be used. Plans were made to begin treatment after the coming Christmas holidays, the first treatment session being set for January 4th, 1964. Apart from the unique quality engendered by the UFO story, treatment proceeded apace, as might be expected, with 2 very anxious and cooperative patients, and continued regularly until terminated at the end of June 1964. During this time, there was no portent of the unfolding drama which began on December 14, 1963, and which was to extend back in time for 2 years, and to extend forward to this moment exactly 2.5 years later, when I would be writing an introduction to the book which was to revive the whole drama. The unfolding of events of which I had had no hint during the whole period of treatment. It was a drama that culminated in Mr. Fuller's book and my introduction, which is rather unique in being an apologia for my presence on stage as a reluctant member of the dramatis personae. The formal treatment program was terminated on June 27, 1964, and from then until late summer 1965, the Hills and I maintained contact through reports of their progress by visits and telephone calls. I had no indication of the developing storm until the late summer of 1965, when I received a telephone call from a newspaper reporter who appeared to be aware of the Hills' story, their treatment, and my part in it, including the use of hypnosis. He requested an interview with me, which I refused, informing him that I would not discuss the Hills' case without their written consent, and that even with their written permission, any discussion would have to depend on my judgment of its potential effect on their emotional health. A month or 2 later, Mr. Hill, in considerable distress, called to say that the reporter had approached them for an interview, which they had refused. He, the reporter, claimed to have data on the case, which he would publish without an interview with them if they refused to comply. It appeared to me that there was nothing that could be done on this basis. The question of giving an interview would be a matter for them to decide, perhaps with legal advice. While I was attending professional meetings in Washington during the week of October 25, 1965, my office called that all hell had broken loose. There were calls from Mr. Hill and calls from a great many strangers. All seemed to be connected with the appearance of a series of articles in a Boston newspaper. These were written by the reporter to whom I had refused the interview, and apparently without permission from Mr. and Mrs. Hill. My associates and our office staff did the best they could with the calls pending my return. On my return, Mr. Hill telephoned and expressed their great distress over this series of articles, which I had not yet seen. He felt that they distorted the truth and considered them a violation of his right of privacy. He wanted my advice, and I suggested that he seek legal advice. From Mr. Hill, I also learned that I had been named in the articles, which explained the large number of calls coming to my office. The nature of these calls gave me a fairly good clue to the way the articles were being interpreted by the general public. The callers could be classified into 4 major groups. Number 1. The despairing. These were people who were apparently emotionally or mentally ill, and who saw in hypnosis, as it was presented by the reporter, the magical solution to their problems. Number 2. The mystics. People who were interested in clairvoyance, extrasensory perception, astrology, and other related phenomena. Many of this group saw in the experience and the hypnosis support of their own ideas and beliefs. Number 3. The fellow travelers. These were the self-appointed interviewers who knew the answers to the mysteries of life and saw in the Hills experience and the hypnosis confirmation of their beliefs. Most of them seemed to be motivated by the wish to bring themselves to my attention as mutual supporters, perhaps for their gain. Number 4. The sympathizers. A number of callers expressed sympathy for my persecution by the writer, who mentioned me either as a Boston or Back Bay psychiatrist, or by name, in all but one of the articles. The use of my name was quite subtle, and I was regularly credited with refusing to violate the doctor-patient relationship by discussing the case. Quite subtly, however, the total impression created in the articles was that some of the fantastic statements which were made came from revelations made under hypnosis, and in some way from me, hence my many phone calls and letters from the public. After consultation with friends and their counsel, the Hills decided that the best way to handle the newspaper articles and any further forays into this field would be to publish the truth. At the time, Mr. John Fuller had been investigating UFO phenomena in the New Hampshire area and was working on a book about incidents in the Exeter area. The Hills discussed the matter with me and asked me to make available to Mr. Fuller my records, chiefly the tape recordings of their treatment, so that they could present an authentic version of the true story as they had experienced it. Public interest, rather than abating, had been increasing, and there was danger that other stories might be published which would increase their distress. For therapeutic purposes, all of the treatment under hypnosis had been recorded verbatim on a tape recorder. It was inevitable, I suppose, that Mr. Fuller would want to have this verbatim and incontestable material, and the Hills' request was understandable. The physician's records are his property, but the contents of these records should be available in the interest of his patients. In this sense, they are also property of the patients. I decided ultimately that the paramount issue, the emotional health of Mr. and Mrs. Hill, would best be served by releasing the recordings if I could be assured that they would be used honestly and not detrimentally to them. It appeared that both Mr. Fuller and I had had the same idea and had checked each other's biographies in Who's Who in the East to our mutual satisfaction. Conferences with Mr. Fuller and the Hills ensued, and it was agreed that I would have the right to pass on all medical data in the book to prevent, as much as possible, the creation of false impressions and conclusions. It was also agreed that no information of a personal and intimate nature would be revealed, if it was not relevant to the UFO experience.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?